Good morning, dear students. Today we shall begin with the second part of the second chapter, that is sectors of Indian economy. In the previous class, we had studied that there are various types of economic activities that are taken up by different people, and those activities are grouped together to form sectors. So there are three bases on which these sectors are formed. The first one is on the basis of nature of activity. The second one is on the basis of ownership. And the third one is on the basis of working condition. So on the basis of nature of activity, there are three sectors, namely primary sector, secondary sector, and tertiary sector. On the basis of ownership, there are two sectors, namely public sector and private sector. And on the basis of working condition, again there are two types of sectors, namely organized and unorganized sector. So let us proceed. The next topic is comparing the three sectors. The various production activities in primary, secondary, and tertiary sectors produce a large number of goods and services. So these three sectors that we studied in the previous class on the basis of nature of activities, they produce varied variety of goods and services. Primary sector produces agricultural output, iron ore, various poultry products, etc. The secondary sector provides finished goods such as furnitures, eatables, medicines, etc. And tertiary sector provides the services that help primary and secondary sectors. So there are various varieties of goods and services that are being produced under these three sectors. Also, the three sectors have a large number of people working in them to produce these goods and services. Now, since production is taking place in all the three sector, a variety of goods are being produced. As a result, there are huge number of people who are involved in these sectors. The next step, therefore, is to see how much goods and services are produced and how many people work in each sector. So now the next step is to calculate how much goods and services are being produced and how much amount of employment is being generated. In an economy, there could be one or more sectors which are dominant in terms of total production and employment, while other sectors are relatively small in size. So in an economy, there is always one sector which is more dominant as compared to other sectors. It produces more amount of products, and it even employs greater number of people. On the contrary, there can be other sector which has got relatively lesser production and which employs lesser number of people. Now, the next subtopic is how do we count the various goods and services and know the total production in each sector. So in the previous slide, we studied that it is important that we should know how much goods are being produced and how many people are working for the production. So this one is related to how goods and services are to be counted and calculated. So the economists suggest that value of goods and services should be used rather than adding up the actual number. Thus, for instance, if 10,000 kgs of wheat is sold at rupees 7 per kg, the value of wheat would be rupees 70,000. The value of 6,000 coconuts at rupees 10 per piece would be rupees 60,000. Likewise, the value of goods and services in three sectors are calculated and then added up. So the economists have said that since there are various kinds of measuring unit for various kinds of products, like agricultural products are measured in kgs, milk or other kinds of liquid are calculated in liters. There are some products which are calculated piecewise. So it is very difficult to add all these various kinds of product. As a result, the economists have said that the value of each output should be added and not the amount of production. Like, for example, if 10,000 kg of wheat is being produced and the price of wheat is rupees 7 per kg, not the exact amount of production but its value, that is 70,000 rupees, should be considered while calculating total production. Now, coconuts are calculated piecewise, and as a result, each piece costs rupees 10. So when 6,000 coconuts are being produced, its value would be rupees 60,000. So each production is firstly it is converted in terms of rupees, and then it is added up to know the total production of each sector. And once the total production of each sector is calculated, after that the total production of economy can be calculated by adding the total production of each sector. In any count, not every goods and services are included. Only goods produced and sold needs to be counted. Now, when we are going to calculate the value of production, every goods and services are not included. Only those goods or services are included which are being produced for the purpose of selling, which is being sold to the final customer. Only those products, only those goods and services are considered. If the farmer produces, suppose, about 100 kgs of wheat, but he keeps 20 kgs for self-consumption, the value of that 20 kg is not going to be added over here while calculating total production. So there is this example over here. For instance, a farmer sells wheat to a flour mill for rupees 8 per kg. The mill grinds the wheat and sells the flour to a biscuit company for rupees 10 per kg. Biscuit company uses flour and items like sugar and oil to make 5 packets of biscuits. It sells biscuits in the market to the consumers for rupees 75, that is rupees 15 per packet. Biscuits are the final goods reaching the consumer. So over here, this is the chain of event that took place. The farmer produced wheat. He sold it to a flour mill owner for rupees 8 per kg. Okay. Now that flour mill owner started grinding that wheat and he started selling it at rupees 10 per kg. But he is not selling to the customer. He is not selling us. He is selling it to the businessman. Now that businessman is making biscuits. And in order to make biscuits, he purchases the wheat. And with 1 kg of wheat, he is able to make 5 packets of biscuit and sell it for rupees 75. Okay. So biscuits over here are final goods that are reaching to the consumer. So there is this term final goods. We need to understand what are final goods and what are intermediate goods. So let us understand the meaning of these two terms. Final goods are those goods which are ready for consumption and need no further processing. These goods are included in the estimation of gross domestic product and national income. So over here they are saying that final goods are those goods which are being consumed by the final consumers, by us, and those goods do not require any further processing. Like we saw in the previous example, wheat was sold to the flour mill owner, and flour mill owner sold it again to the biscuit company, and then finally biscuit reached to us, to the final consumer. So only biscuit is the final product, final good. Okay, but it is not that wheat is not consumed by us or flour is not consumed by us. If the customer purchases wheat and grinds wheat at home itself, if they want to do that, wheat becomes the final product because it is being sold to the consumer. There are many families who use wheat flour, who purchase wheat flour and then use it to make chapatis. So once a consumer purchases wheat flour, that becomes final good. Okay. So whatever good are purchased by the final customers, by us, that becomes final goods. On the contrary, there is this another term, intermediate goods. So intermediate goods are such goods that require further processing. These are used as input in the production of other goods. To avoid double counting, these goods are not considered in the computation of GDP and national income. So intermediate goods are all those goods which is being produced by one producer and is being used as input to produce a completely different commodity. Like wheat was produced to be biscuit. Okay, so wheat was an input for flour mill owner who sold wheat flour, and then wheat flour was the input for making biscuit. So wheat and wheat flour are the intermediate goods which are being used to produce another commodity. Okay. Now, final goods, the value of final goods are not considered in the estimation of gross domestic product. Once we add the value of production of each sector, the total amount that we get, that is gross domestic product, and only the value of final goods are considered in it. Intermediate goods are not considered while calculating the value of GDP because it would lead to double counting. The reason is the value of final goods already contains the value of intermediate goods. As a result, we do not consider the value of intermediate goods. And national income, you already know, means total income. So only final goods are considered while calculating GDP and national income. As compared to final goods, goods like wheat and wheat flour are intermediate goods. Intermediate goods are used in producing final goods and services. The value of final goods already include the value of all intermediate goods used in making final goods. Hence, the value of rupees 75 for final good includes the value of flour, that is rupees 10. Okay, so this value of biscuit rupees 75 already includes the value of flour that has been used, that is rupees 10. Whenever a producer purchases a particular input, the producer considers all the cost and then he adds certain amount of profit, and while after adding all these things, that producer gets the MRP, the amount of money for which he will be selling his product. So MRP already includes cost that has been incurred by the producer along with certain amount of profit. Okay, so how is GDP measured? So GDP stands for gross domestic product. You already know that. The monetary value of final goods and services in each sector during a particular year is measured. Then the monetary value of final goods and services of all the three sectors is added to get gross domestic product. So monetary value over here means value in terms of money. Monetary means in terms of money. So monetary value of all goods and services of each sectors are measured first for a particular year, and then the value of all the three sectors are added, and once it is done, we get gross domestic product. Thus, GDP is the value of all final goods and services produced in a country in a particular year. So GDP is the value of all the final goods and services. What you need to pay attention to is in a country in a particular year. Okay, so GDP is calculated every year, and it is calculated for an economy. Like we have got our economy, which is known as Indian economy, the economy of India. So GDP is calculated for the economy of India every year. So in India, GDP is measured by Central Statistical Organization, CSO. This organization collects data with the help of various government departments of all states, central government and union territories. So in India, the work of calculating and determining GDP has been given to an organization named Central Statistical Organization, and this organization collects data from various government offices that are present at state level or at central level. So the next topic is historical changes in sectors. In initial stages, primary sector was the most vital sector of the economic activity in India. As agriculture prospered, production of food increased much more than before. Many people now took up other activities. Buying and selling activities increased many times. Further, there were also many transporters, administrators, etc. Most people at this time were employed in primary sector. So, at the initial stage in India, the most important economic activity was related to primary sector, and mainly it was confined to agriculture. So people focused on increasing their production so that they could earn more and more profit. Now, once agriculture was done, people later realized that there are various other activities related to agriculture that can be taken up, such as buying and selling activities. Okay. Now, there were various other work that were being performed, like of transportation and of administration of all these agricultural output, how it is to be sold and how it is to be purchased and everything. So people at initial stage were very much related to primary sector. They were either producing agricultural output, or they were buying or selling or transporting various other various primary sector products. Over time, manufacturing became important. More and more factories were developed. People now started working in factories in large number. Secondary sector became the most popular in production and employment. So, over time, after agriculture flourished, it was realized that the agricultural output can be processed. Okay, so for that, various factories were set up, and people also started realizing that if they will work in this manufacturing sector, they are going to earn good amount of money. So gradually this industrial sector was formed, which started producing a good amount of goods and services, and also provided employment to a greater number of people. This trend changed gradually. In the last 100 years, there has been a shift from secondary to tertiary sector in developed states. Service and tertiary sector has become most important. Similar pattern has been observed in developed countries. So later on it was realized that certain services are required by these primary and secondary sector, and as a result a full-fledged sector known as tertiary sector was formed. And this pattern of at initial stage primary sector was important, and then secondary sector started flourishing, and then came tertiary sector. So this pattern has been observed in all the developed country. This is the pattern in which the economy has been growing for all the developed countries. So there are few assignments for today.